We appear to be live.
Good evening, and welcome to the fourth of the 2024 candidate forums jointly hosted by the Lincoln County News and the Booth Bay Register. My name is John Roberts, and it is my pleasure to be here tonight to moderate this forum. At this time, I'd like to ask the scouts from Troop 213 and Jammer Scouta to come forward and for everyone to remove their You guys can just start it from there. Just start it from there.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you. The scouts are here tonight as part of their communications merit badge, so they have to come to a public forum and hear a difference of opinion. So we thought this might be the perfect way. So thank you to the town of Waldoboro for the space, as well as the candidates for your willingness to participate and be here tonight. And the audience is a great turnout, so thank you for that. Sorry for the lack of chairs. I would like to thank Lucas McNally as well, our tech guru, who's helping us on all the forums this year. And tonight we have two house races that are represented. For the local seat here in Waldoboro is House District 45, which consists of Bremen, Louds Island, Waldoboro, Friendship, and Washington. And the two candidates for this seat are incumbent Representative Captain Simmons and challenger Jennifer Stone. The other house seat is District 62, which contains the very populous Hibbert Store, Somerville, China, Palermo, and Windsor. And the two candidates for this seat are incumbent Representative Katrina Smith and challenger. So thank you for being here. Shortly, we'll have the candidates for that given 2 minutes to introduce themselves. And for each of the questions tonight, all candidates will receive 2 minutes for each answer, and there will be time for a closing statement at the end. We ask that you hold your applause until all the candidates have had a chance to answer a question. And we'd also ask that the audience refrain from outbursts or remarks directed at the candidates. We will start with a different candidate for each question, but we will go from the audience's left to the right. So here, in addition to creating our own questions, we asked suggestions from our readers, and then we tried to make the questions not leading in kind of more generic for the candidates. I will pose a question and provide which candidate is going to start, and I will hold up this yellow screen, and you have 30 seconds left to respond, and then a red card and stop if you hit the whole time. So unless there are any questions from the candidates on the procedural part of the forum, we will get underway. So Representative Simmons, will you kick us off with introductory statements, please?
Yep, I'm Edmund Simmons. I live in Waldoboro. I grew up in Waldoboro. I've been here almost all 53 years of my being on this earth. The only year I wasn't here was the year I moved out of town to the house that my father grew up in for a year until I found a house to buy. That was in '93. I've been in the same house since '93. So I've got a lot vested into this town. I've served on the planning board for 6 years. I served on the select board. I just got voted in for my 4th term. So I've been heavily invested in this town and in this area. I have a clam buying business. We've been in business for 28 years. I did clams for a living. I've done that since I was 8 years old. I used to go after school on the weekends, get dropped off, even when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and go. So I've worked hard all my life. I know what it's like to struggle, and I hope to stay where I am and help people that do struggle.
I'd like to thank
Lincoln County News for this forum, this event, and also for the town of Waldoboro for hosting. My name is Jennifer Stone. I have lived in Waldoboro almost 20 years. I graduated from Unity College. I've been on the board of the Waldoboro Public Library, and I have a student in the school district. Seeking office is not something I ever thought I would ever do. I'm doing it because I was asked to do so, and I would not be here before you today if it was not for this community. I have knocked on doors. Things have been brought to my attention that I was not aware of. I'm very excited to knock on more doors. I am here because we feel that our voices and our concerns are not heard, and we are not represented in us. And I am looking forward to getting that done. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Katrina Smith, and I currently represent District 62, and I live in Palermo. I grew up in Maine and Appleton on the family farm, and on my grandparents' side, and we moved off the farm with a single mom. And I currently, like I said, live in Palermo. I've lived there for 10 years. I have 3 all pretty much grown children now, 19, 20, and 24, and 2 stepsons and 3 grandchildren, with another one being adopted in just a couple weeks. So a full table when everybody's together. And that was the reason I ran the first time. This has been my first term. I ran for the future of Maine, for our children, for protecting them, for the concerns that I saw in our school system and in government overreach. And I will continue to be a strong voice for that, no matter what happens going forward. But I'm not someone who bows to pressure because the stakes are too high. It doesn't matter if I'm uncomfortable or pressured by other people not to speak out. Something I have an obligation to do, and I feel like I've really done that through the last 2 years, and I hope to continue to do that as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam Swift. Just to give you a little background, I got a bachelor's degree in animal science in college. I had planned to be a veterinarian, but sometimes life takes you in funny directions, and I wound up going to medical school instead. I then did a residency in OBGYN and joined one of the larger private practices in town. And then after 23 years, I came full circle back to my animal science roots, and my husband and I bought a farm in Palermo where we raise sheep. So now I'm midwifing lambs instead. Since being in Palermo, I've been very civically active. I'm serving my 2nd term on the select board. And I'm also on the board of trustees and secretary at the Palermo Community Library. I'm the chair of the Palermo Days Committee, secretary of the Branch Mills Grange, member of the Historical Society, and I write the quarterly newspaper that goes to every resident in the town to convey important information to all our residents. So I've dedicated my time to making Palermo a better place, and I would do the same as your state representative.
Thank you all, and again, thank you for coming here to welcome. So to start with the first question, while talking with voters leading up to this election in November, what are some of the topics or issues that are most frequently brought up? And if elected, how do you hope to address them in the legislature? And this time, Ms. Stone.
I think the most common concern is property taxes. We've all just got our tax bills, and I don't know anyone who is excited about paying their property taxes. But I would like to remind people that what you put in is what you get out, and we all need to contribute. I'm very disappointed that the legislature rescinded LD, I forgot, 290, which was the senior stabilization tax credit. I understand why they did so. We did not take into account that not all seniors are created equal. And while I don't know of anybody who is not interested in assisting seniors, there's a big disparity between seniors that have a $200,000 home on a fixed income, and then other seniors who have a $2 million home and have a nice, robust portfolio. I would like for us to see a way of bringing that back, maybe on a graduated income level. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, talking to people, obviously taxes definitely are a concern and a burden. Just overall being able to stay and afford to live in Maine, it's very difficult to do at this time. And my heart goes out to people who are finding themselves just pulled in every direction. In terms of the Property Tax Stabilization Act, that definitely could have helped our seniors. Unfortunately, that was overturned, and any amendment or any new program that would have helped that program to only be applicable to lower income seniors was not voted out of committee or not allowed to come to the floor. That was something that Republicans were pushing to actually go ahead and change that program instead of completely get rid of it. So that was definitely a tragedy, and I think it's going to be very difficult for our seniors to get through this winter and to keep their homes as well. People are very concerned about education and very concerned about the children of this state, and that's something that we really need to focus on. Part of our property taxes in Palermo is 68% is education. The money goes to education. That needs to be reined in. We have some of the highest administrative costs in the country in our schools, and that needs to change because we cannot pay this much. We had a budget surplus in the last session, and I must say a budget surplus is that you are overtaxed. There are places to change things. It's not just property tax, it's a little more difficult because it's state and or local and county as well, and education. But just overall, the taxes that we find having to pay every single time we go to the town office is just a crazy amount everywhere we go with our taxes. So we're taking in too much money. We need to cut spending. We definitely need to trim out the education budget because that is your property taxes, and that's going to change.
So maybe it's because I introduced myself as a retired OBGYN at the doors, but I'm having an awful lot of conversations about reproductive freedom. And no matter how you feel about abortion, most would agree that the government and politicians should not have a role in making that decision. The vast majority of abortions are done before 12 weeks. And the ones that are performed after that, by and far, are desperately wanted pregnancies. And these families are being given tragic news that their baby has horrible birth defects or genetic disease. And they have to make this agonizing decision. Do they have the emotional, social, financial resources to bring a child like that into the world? And nobody should be making that decision except the people in that exam room. I fully support a woman's right to have agency over her own body. The foundation of all of our rights is bodily autonomy, and that means my body is my own. And without that, you can't have any other rights. We already have laws on the book protecting bodily autonomy. The government can't force you to donate an organ or bone marrow or blood. So without bodily autonomy, women are relegated to second-class citizens.
Well, where do I start? There isn't just one thing that people are concerned about. Property taxes, electricity, heating their house this winter. Electricity is sometimes doubled or tripled for people. That's worse than anything there is. You know, and property taxes, I'm going to pat myself on the back for this for Waldoboro. As in our town government last year, my goal as being on the chair was to make sure our taxes didn't go up. Our town government taxes did not go up. They dropped 0.3%. The school and the county caused the taxes to go up. So, I mean, there is ways to do it. We just had LD1 removed. So that takes that away from the people that are voting these towns. If the town wants to spend that money, that there's no checks and balances to that. And that was wrong. I think that should be brought back. But I think taxes and electricity and oil is huge to people. That they're just trying to survive. All these other things are trivial to them. But being able to stay in their homes is the biggest issue that I've heard.
You guys are fine with questions. So kind of on a similar vein to what some of you have talked about is between inflation and increased property taxes, Mainers' hard-earned dollars are being stretched thinner and thinner. What can the legislator do to help alleviate that stress? And this time we'll start with Representative Smith.
Well, we need to stop spending money. You look at what the governor has, they've predicted an almost $934 million shortfall. That's because there's programs being created that just do not have the money there to be spent on them. I mean, we've got to put the people first. We've got to put basic services, but we have so many services that just are not needed. So many climate change services that are not needed to be put forth by the government. We look at net energy billing. I mean, net energy billing is you paying for solar panels. There is absolutely no question about it. Your electricity bills have gone up because of the quest for clean energy and honestly the ruining of our farmland, which we see every day, and the ruining of our tourists' appreciation of Maine as they drive down the road and see these incredible farms. I mean, that is one huge thing. We need our electricity. We are not anywhere near being able to supplement it with wind or solar, and we shouldn't be. If these companies need to survive, they need to do it off of the backs of Mainers, or not off of the backs of Mainers, which they are on the backs of Mainers right now. We are paying for them, and they're not helping us at all. They're making the money. They're leaving this state. Got to stop net energy billing.
So the whole world experienced high inflation after the pandemic, during the pandemic, because the supply chain problems. But our country did the best of the whole world at getting through that. And the Biden administration achieved that soft landing that everybody was looking for. But prices are still too high, that's for sure. But a big part of that is due to price gouging by corporations. When corporations are making record profits and not lowering the prices for their customers, they're funneling that money to the shareholders. So the Democrats did introduce a bill in DC to penalize corporations that were price gouging. Unfortunately, they couldn't get enough support from their friends across the aisle. And I'm sure that the state of Maine could do something similar to stop price gouging. But the other way to address it is to give families a little more breathing room by helping on the other end with affordable childcare, health care, that sort of thing. Yes, that's it.
Just repeat the question real quick.
Between inflation and increased property taxes, Mainers' dollars are being stretched thinner and thinner. What can the legislature do to help alleviate the stress?
Multiple things. I touched on the energy situation. People are really struggling to pay their electricity bills. There was a bill in the legislature back last session that would have capped out what solar farms could make. It takes them 4.5 cents to produce it. There was a bill in to make it 10 cents, so they was making 5.5 cents. They're making, from what I understand, from the numbers, between 20 and 26 cents. And the people in this room, it doesn't matter. They're not discriminating. They're taking all of your money. If you want to talk about price gouging, that's price gouging right there. Property taxes, I think we should go up on our homestead exemption. I actually had a thing that I had brought to our town manager about using the money we get from the state, the profit sharing, is to turn into a town homestead exemption. It should be split up amongst the people that actually live here and not the people that have a second or third home here. I mean, that would help the taxpayers of the town of Waldoboro. But I was told that it wasn't constitutional. So I'm gonna continue to push for that and look into that. But I think the people that live in these towns should be getting that money back, not just everybody that's got in the town that's got a second or third home here. I think that would help out the townspeople that live here year round.
I know that we have little control over the prices that corporations charge us. I would like to see a wealth tax. We had one pass through both the House and the Senate this past session, and it was voted down by the governor. I think we should revisit that and try to find a way that all the wealth at the top is not hoarded and make things more equitable for the people that are struggling. Thank you.
So switch gears a little bit. Education is a topic on a lot of people's minds. What changes, if any, would you want to see the legislator take in regards to the public education system? And this time it's start with candidates with.
So my husband and I don't have kids, but we are happy to have our tax dollars go to educate the children in our community because an educated populace is critical. They learn critical learning skills and learn how to have good decision making, and then they can be informed citizens making informed decisions. I would support the continued 55% aid from the state. I'm glad that finally got put into place. The other thing that I'm very happy about is the meals for all. So all of the kids in schools get meals because when you have an empty belly. One thing I would like to build on with that is to have some sort of farm to table program. So the food for those meals is sourced from our local farmers. So the kids are getting nutritious foods, and the byproduct is the local farmers that get some support.
Repeat the question.
Education is a topic on a lot of people's minds. What changes, if any, would you want to see the legislator take in regards to the public education system?
Well, I think a lot of areas are the odds are stacked against it. Whether it's 55%, it doesn't really matter. I think a lot of these towns in southern Maine get the lion's share of that money, and it really cripples the towns like this area up through here, east of the Kennebec River. They get punished. They don't have the resources that the other towns have to put their money into their education. I think we should be relooking at the structure of the percentages of what towns get, what districts get, and change that, because these towns really need the money. And some of these towns like Cape Elizabeth, that district there was getting the lion's share of a lot of money that these other towns that could have really needed, and they can afford it. And I really think that's very unfortunate that nobody will look at that. And I'd like to see something like that looked at and see what we can do about it.
Oversimplified. Property taxes greatly benefit our schools. I hear a lot of people complain that they don't want to pay into the schools. When students hear that, that makes them feel that they're not worth investing in. We have a huge problem in the state where we have the oldest population. Our students move away and they don't come back. Property taxes are very much like the theory of health insurance. We need a broad spectrum of participants in order to make sure everybody's properly covered. If we do not invest in our students, they don't move back. And if they don't move back, they're not contributing to our towns. Public speaking is not my forte. There's so much there's so much I would like to say, but it leaves me. I'm great with one-on-one conversations. I welcome you all to flag me down and we can have a wonderful talk sometime. Thank you.
So, I'm a straight shooter. Maine is 43rd in the nation. Does our education system deserve more resources when we're 43rd in the nation and we used to lead the nation? It doesn't. Not the way it currently is operating. We need school choice. We need schools to step up and be better and drop some of the baloney that they're doing and that they're not teaching our kids so that they can focus on our kids. Our kids literally are not reading and writing. Literally. They do not know how to do math. We are failing our children with the system. You can't keep doing the same thing. Sorry. Very passionate about this because I have great kids who are on the edge of learning crazy things, new math and DEI and all that, and they escape that. But the kids there now are not getting a good education, and we've got to change it from the bottom up. And I don't care what it takes. If we have school choice and it's private schools that start to get the money, then the other schools, the public schools, got to step up and do a better job. Our children are being failed. It's absolutely documented that it's 43rd in the nation. It's not something I'm making up, and we've got to make changes, and we've got to do it very quick. Because our kids are not going to come back here because they're not going to put their kids in a failing school system. I don't want my kids to go out and have a family and bring their kids back here and put in this public school system, and we're paying for it. If we're paying for it, we need to demand that it's better. We need to demand that our kids are top of the nation again because they can be. It's not economic status. It's not if your parents went to college or not. It's if you're actually being taught in schools, and we've got to make that happen.
That was the last good example of clapping for when everyone has finished the question. So thank you. Emergency services in the state have been hit with changes over the past few years, with potentially more on the horizon. Equipment, vehicle, and personnel costs have all increased dramatically over the past 3 years, and local responders say proposed OSHA changes are threatening to have a large impact, primarily on the fire services. What is your view of the state of emergency services in Maine, and what role do you envision the legislature taking to address some of these matters? And we'll start back with Representative Simmons.
Well, we've dealt with a lot with this in Waldoboro. We had a crisis back during COVID. We had 200 to 300 shifts a month not being filled. We found out that you could go to Walmart for $19 an hour and stock shelves, but we were only paying our medics, EMTs, $18 an hour. We had to take a really hard look at what we really needed to do as the select board, and we actually increased our pay over the course of 2 years, up $10. So they were getting between $27 and $29 an hour. That's the only way we could keep and recruit new EMTs, and it's been successful since. We've dropped off dramatically on having shifts. We cover a lot of towns. We're not small by any means. We do anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000 calls a year through this EMS, and we had to really pay attention. We gave them benefits, gave them extra retirement situations. We almost had to treat it like it was an actual business and give them those benefits to be able to hold them. There's a small pool out there of EMTs, firefighters, police officers. There's nobody getting into the business like they used to. And there's a small pool, and we're all stealing from each other. Every time we turn around, somebody's paying $5 more an hour for the same job. So we have to, it's a tricky issue to try and keep ahead of and not cripple the town itself. But also with the OSHA new rules coming in, all these volunteer departments are going to go away. I mean, I know we're fighting it. We've had our fire chief on notice to make sure he pays attention to this, make sure that anybody that needs to be told that this is going to cripple us and wipe us out has been told. And the town has supported that. and making sure our congressional and Senate leaders in DC notice that.
I think it's very unfair to OSHA to just drop this in our laps and say, go ahead, deal with it. I think we need to sit back down at the table with them. Someone's got to bargain with them. We need to partner with other states with similar situations and see how they are handling the situation. There is not a one size fits all answer to this. We're going to have to be creative. It starts with bargaining. We're going to have to look at maybe some of our equipment. Maybe we need to move away from the type of trucks that we have. Maybe we need to move to more of a European model with single chassis, single cab, which are significantly less expensive. They're just as good, better gas mileage, they're just smaller. We also need to think about outside the box for different solutions. Like if we look at Daytona Beach first responders, they arrive on motorcycle because that's how they can get through quicker. I'm sure that's not something initially that we would just grant. And I don't see our firefighters or EMS going out in January and February on motorcycles, but we have to think outside the box and see what other states are doing to come up with this. I think we also can find incentives to make volunteering more, I don't want to say equitable, but volunteering more exciting. Thank you.
Well, I first met with Windsor Volunteer Fire Department back in the beginning of April. I was actually one of the first people to present to our caucus that this issue is starting, and they had already been in touch with Susan Collins' office about all these regulations, and we're working very closely with her. I mean, Maine just became an OSHA, under OSHA guidelines for our fire departments in 2019. Janet Mills joined the compact of states that were under OSHA. So we actually wouldn't have had this problem before them. We wouldn't have been under these OSHA guidelines. I do have hope that OSHA will back off of this. The outcry has been tremendous. It's been bipartisan. Everybody knows it won't work for Maine. So they kept extending the deadline to give comment. So I do have hope that they won't go through with this. And of course, it will devastate our towns. It will devastate the way that Maine has operated for years. So I don't know the answer to it. If OSHA goes through with it, we'll have to figure that out then. I mean, with our EMS workers, you think of the COVID vaccine and the number of people that had to leave. Everything unfortunately builds on everything. There's not always an easy answer. They lost a lot of people during that time, and those people have found other occupations, other things to do. They're not going back, and they require people to be paramedics in places. So there's a lot going on there. It's something we need to figure out. There was a blue ribbon commission on this problem. It's over 150 pages long, the report on it. So the legislature is actively working through this. Representative Scott Steerway is running for Senate. He's been very active as a former police officer and being involved in this blue ribbon commission and pushing for it. So we need, incentives to keep these services local. Delta had lost some reimbursement from Medicare. There's a lot that goes into it, but I know that the legislature is bipartisan and looking at it. There's been some good ideas, and that they'll continue to push them forward because Maine is founded on our volunteers and the people in our local community.
So on the select board in Palermo, we've been talking with our fire chief about this an awful lot, as you might expect. And so just to make sure you all understand, OSHA is proposing to change the 40-year-old fire brigade rule to the much more stringent emergency response rule. And what that would mean is updating trucks and fire suits and training. And our fire chief estimates it would cost $2 million in Palermo, which is not very much. It would devastate all volunteer fire departments. And it's frightening to think that you may not have someone show up if your house catches on fire or if you have a medical emergency in the middle of the night. one of the things I did is I wrote a letter to the Assistant Secretary of Labor, who heads OSHA down in DC, to explain exactly how this would devastate our town. So if they insist on changing this rule, the only way we'll get through it is with state funding and extension of the timeline for when they expect these to go into effect. Yeah, the whole idea behind it is admirable. It's to try and keep our firefighters and paramedics safe, but the reality of it is just kind of devastating. Just on EMS, Palermo partnered with Liberty, next town over, because Delta was taking 45 minutes to come to a call, where they're not getting there in like 3 and 4 minutes. And they've also designated the paramedics and EMTs in our town. They gave them jump bags with medical equipment so they can get from their house to a person's house as the ambulance is in transport.
So the sequence of this next question will be a little different. It's in 2 parts. The first part is to our sitting representatives, and the second part would be for our other candidates. So to start, Representative Simmons and Smith, what achievement from your most recent term are you most proud of and why? And we'll start with Representative Smith.
Well, I actually had 2 bills passed with complete bipartisan support. One was to require that the protection from abuse order be attempted to be served within 48 hours. There was nothing that put it down to a certain time frame. This was based on a constituent situation that is extremely sensitive and fragile for a minor. It's extremely dangerous, and it did not go well. So that I put in, and it was passed, and it is in law now. The other one I'll mention is that I also had a bill for Lyme disease to further fund the tick lab at UMaine. And that was, the committee actually gave us more than we wanted. They said, let's give them 500,000. So the committee, full support because to test the tick at the tick lab, it cost $15. It did cost $15. You could send it in, and within a couple of days, you'd know if it had Lyme disease. And I know that Lyme affects so many people, and just trying to find some way to make an inroad into that. And so they were going to keep the cost down, and they were going to be able to do promotional things to promote the tick lab and for people to understand how they could use that service. But it didn't get approved in the budget, even past the floor of the House, but in the budget, they gave it no money. So that's where it all goes to die. But so I'm proud of those, and I'm also proud of opposing LD 1735, which is the gender trafficking bill, when it stood alone outside of, it didn't get passed when it was coupled with abortion. But I was very successful in getting a national attention against LD 1735 and killing it in committee. So very happy with all those, and there could be a lot that could be done if both sides of the aisle could work a little better together. And I think my 2 bills that did pass show that we can make strides in Maine if we did work together.
Well, unfortunately, I was late to the show. I couldn't get any bills in. I won in a special election last June. I did have a bill in through Senator Rennie. I had 2 bills through her. One of them passed. I had her introduce it for me. So I was still active regardless of where I was. I was still active. That was for Elver fishermen, which is a $20 million a year industry for the fishermen in the state of Maine. And a lot of folks that I represent a lot of commercial fishing. It's between $500 and $600 million a year to the fishermen to the state of Maine. It's about $3.6 billion to the economy to the state of Maine. So I'm very active in commercial fishing. I've done just about everything there is to harvest. That was one of the things that some guys had brought to my attention about. A lot of our fishermen are older, and I wanted a bill in that if they got hurt or they come down with an illness during the season, that they would still have that income to be able to get them through. A lot of fishermen, the average age is around 53 years old. So a lot of these fishermen rely on that income in the spring to get them through the year. And that was one of the biggest things, is they could not allow anybody else to fish for their product when if they got hurt, injured, or sick. And it was a really big deal for them, believe it or not. So that was one of the things that I got through this last session through Senator Rennie.
I guess. So the second half of the question is to our candidates going to if elected, what would be your number one priority during the first term? And we'll start with candidates Tony.
My number one priority would be healthcare. Maine ranks 23rd in the country for healthcare. 6.6 of our citizens are uninsured. In Waldoboro, it's over 8%. In Friendship, it's over 13%. And in Maine, out of that 6.6% of people without health insurance, over 75% of them are working families. I think that is totally unacceptable. We need to do better. We need to expand affordability, access, and quality. Our people deserve it. I think maybe we need to move away from more towards a single payer option. As individuals, we pay our insurance companies, state pays insurance companies, our employers pay health insurance companies, and so does the federal government. We need to just start moving towards a single payer. Thank you.
My top priority would also be healthcare. And I would want that to include vision, dental, hearing, mental health, and prevention. I am also a big proponent of universal health care. I think the for-profit model has all the wrong incentives. Health insurance companies seem to spend an awful lot of time trying to deny coverage instead of giving people the care and coverage access to it that they need. Without a for-profit model, you would save money by eliminating the advertising, eliminating the profits going to the shareholders, and the exorbitancy of pay.
So technically, that's the end of that question too. Our next question will ask for housing. Housing in Maine has been an ongoing topic of conversation and media coverage. Is there a particular facet of the housing situation you are most passionate about, and how would you hope to address it? So at this time with candidates.
I am a creative problem solver, and one of the things I see about this problem in Maine is one size will not fit all. As different areas of Maine have very different needs for housing. On the coast, they need more seasonal housing for their seasonal workers. In Belfast, downtown Belfast, they're able to take advantage of the vertical space by putting apartments on top of the stores. For rural areas like Maine, there are a few different things that we could do. In Palermo, our planning board has approved 2 subdivisions, and there's another one in the works. And so they allow a house to be built on 1 acre. 2 of these happen to be coming into Route 3, so there's already good roadways and access to that point. But then if you're just building 1 road with a bunch of houses around it, it costs less to pave that road, to plow that road, and to maintain that road. Another one of the residents in our town, I happen to know he's participating in I don't know exactly what the program is called. It's like house sharing. They match people who want to rent a room in a house with homeowners that have a room they'd like to rent. So there are many, many possibilities, but we just need to be creative. Also, Waterville with the factories, I noticed they're starting to renovate those, and I think that's a wonderful way to take advantage of space that's not being used, and it'll revitalize the downtown there.
There's multiple pieces to this. Affordable housing, that's going to be a thing of the past unless we get the cost of everything reined in. Everything revolves around fuel. everything has to move by fuel. Everything's made by fuel. Does almost everything out there has to be manufactured. It's one way, shape, or form by fuel. And if we don't get our fuel prices down, I don't believe we'll ever have affordable housing. In the last 4 years, it went from $100 to $110 a square foot to build a house to $350 a square foot to build a house. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that way. You're not going to get affordable housing if this keeps it up, and especially the way the price of property taxes are. You can't build a two-family house, two kid home can barely be on a 1,000 square foot house, and you're going to charge those people $350,000 at a minimum to build. Kids can't support that. That we're going to wind up being pushed out into other states to live. And I think we really need to look at what our fuel consumption is and what we need to do to reduce the price of products. And the labor now for building a house went from $25 to $50, $75 an hour. It's crazy. I'm looking at right now. My son's looking at moving into a house in North Waldoboro that I own, and I'm pricing out stuff for him to fix up in the house, and they're getting ungodly amounts of money. I'm going to wind up having to do a lot of the work myself because he's not going to be able to afford to do it, and I think that's very unfortunate.
I think there's a few things we need to look at. One, I think we need to crack down on non-owner occupied short-term dwellings. We have people from out of state buying houses and renting them out as vacation rentals for just a few weeks or year, and then they just send empty. That is a missed opportunity for us. Another approach I'd like to see us take is I was raised in a multi-generation household. There were 4 generations under one roof. I think that it's a missed opportunity for elder care. I think that's a missed opportunity for child care. It's a big part of community that I see lacking. Something else we need to start is we've started to modify our building codes so we can build a little bit denser. We need to look at gentle density instead of a 1 or 2 acre lot with just one home. We need to start thinking about smaller homes, 500, 800 square foot homes, what used to be called starter homes, empty nester homes. So keep our density in our town centers, stay away from subdevelopments, which take more time and energy, more money to maintain as far as roads. And thank you.
I think one thing we need to be careful of is pushing away local control. The state does not dictate what each town should do. It's very dangerous. What we have in Palermo is not what is happening in Portland. So we need to be very careful about applying it just carte blanche across the state. It's very dangerous to our communities, to our farming, to our open space. It's something that needs to be watched over. The other thing is that, I was at the Mid-Maine homeless shelter a couple of weeks ago and speaking with the director there, and he actually agreed with me. I'm like, I thought that was the way that it was, that we have stopped the flow of housing. What I mean is, say, take New Brunswick with a brand new apartment building being built for illegal and given to them free for 2 years. That takes the ability for someone who's currently in a housing shelter to move to an apartment in Maine and open up a spot there in shelter. So this person can't go to a free apartment in Maine and get a job and get grounded and then eventually move up to the next stage of real estate. We've stopped the flow because we've given so much housing away to people who have come into our state, that Janet Mills still wants 75,000 more to go. We need to put brakes on these programs that are harming Mainers. Mainers must come first. Our veterans must come first. When we passed the budget on my very first day when I was sworn in, and we gave I didn't vote for it, gave $50 million to emergency fuel assistance and housing. We gave $33 million of that to house 2,200 illegal aliens for 4 months. You know, it's just, we need to take care of Mainers. There is a housing situation, but we need to be very careful, and we need to make sure that we are taking care of the people in this state at this time and not inviting more people in who are using our resources that we can't afford at this time.
The illicit marijuana grow operations continue to be found in Maine. Some estimates include over 100 facilities, some with ties to organized crime. Do you think there's a need for legislation in regards to these operations? And if so, what changes would you propose? Start with Representative Smith.
This is crazy. And the funny part about it is I heard a lot of stories about this, that sheriffs were actually living across from these and there wasn't a thing they could do about it. Nobody would listen to them. And finally, as the coverage from a news reporter finally got attention, that they actually started doing something about it. They're harming these towns. Every town that this is happening, they're devastating these towns. There was a bill in, I believe, to anyone that had over a 400 watt amp system would be reported to the legislature, reported that CMP would have to do to make sure this wasn't an illegal grow. And the people that are doing this are trafficking the people that are there. So there should be more done about that. I think that the legislature should step in, and in any of these situations, that property should be seized, period. They lose it. I don't care who owns it. It doesn't matter. If somebody from out of state bought it and they allow this at their property, they should be confiscated right there. I think that's one of the biggest things that would deter this type of activity.
Could you repeat the question?
It's the first time we've asked this one, so bear with me. Illicit marijuana grow operations continue to be found in Maine. Some estimates include over 100 facilities, some with ties to organized crime. Do you think there's a need for legislation in regard to these operations? If so, what changes would you propose?
I don't think that we have room for any illegal operations. And I think in the state, regardless of the activity, whether it's illegal marijuana or any other activity, and yes, the legislation should be imposed. I have to be honest, I have not read about this topic, and I am not comfortable answering it this time. Thank you.
Well, I actually did put in emergency legislation regarding legal marijuana grows and ownership by Chinese nationals. Not people who come from China, but Chinese nationals. And my Republican colleagues put in probably 3 or 4 bills, honestly, and they were all shot down. This is far over 100 houses. This is in the 3s and 4s, and we don't even know where they all are. We have one in China. We had several in China. The man was trafficked. I mean, these are people that are suffering. These are not the people in charge who are in these buildings. And it's also directly funded by the Sinaloa cartel. If you really get into this, it is not just Chinese people or Chinese nationals or corporations. It is tied back to the cartel. And it's a very dangerous place for us to be in, for us to be walking by. I just asked Steve Robinson at the Maine Wire, who is the one who's in depth in this story. I just saw their car there in China. I saw a car there. What? He says they go right back. They bust these places. If people go back, this guy's on house arrest. So he's actually still in the house in China. As well, that hurts our housing inventory. Over 300 houses that are completely ruined. You can't go back into these. The pesticide bombs that they put off, all these places need to be razed to the ground. It's a huge problem, and it's a problem that Janet Mills has never spoken about.
Good. Nice to get that.
So there was actually a place in Palermo that the select board suspected was an illegal plant growing place. And we reported it to law enforcement, and there seemed to be a lot of confusion between law enforcement and the legislation. And we had a really, really hard time getting them to go check this place out and find out if it was legal or not. Finally, our fire chief said, well, let me go over there because it's a fire hazard. I'll go find out. But absolutely, if there are illegal businesses running, especially if there can be hazardous to, create fires, they need to be shut down. It's a no-brainer.
So now we're going to transition to our last question, and then we'll go into closing statements. Considering the time that we have left, we'll probably change the closing statements to 3 minutes, if that's okay with everyone. The last question is, what is the biggest challenge you see in Maine's healthcare industry, and what would you want to see the legislator do to address it? Start with
I think the biggest challenge is accessibility. I find it very disheartening that in the past 10 years, over 50 nursing homes. I'd like to see a program. We have a wonderful local trade school, SST. They have a wonderful CNA program. I would like to see something where we transition that workforce, I know, into home health aides, so that way people can age in their homes with dignity and respect that they deserve. I'd like to see continuing education for these students, whether it be by grant or with the local hospital, so they can continue their education and they can move on to get their RN. Thank you.
Well, again, everything builds on each other. We lost numerous healthcare professionals during the requirements for the COVID vaccine. They're in my district, very high up oncologists, nurses who would not work in a hospital that required a COVID vaccine, and we lost them. And they're not going back because they had to find their own way to other careers. And now we pay traveling nurses crazy amounts of money to come and fill those holes. It is a crisis in Maine. People are still waiting months upon months to see doctors. We need to expand our workforce there, and we need to repeal certificate of need, which allows a hospital to expand without this whole governmental process. We tried to bring that forward the last legislature, and that did not happen. I'm not an expert on it, but I know that the system is failing us all right now, and that definitely we need to do something to get it going again. Sorry, I don't know more on that.
So the biggest complaint I hear from friends, family, and community members is access, the ability to get an appointment with a doctor, especially specialist. People are waiting months. I have a family member who was trying to see a pain specialist. Took several months to get the appointment, then it got canceled and rescheduled and canceled and rescheduled. And because of that, I mean, it has real world medical consequences. He's lost a lot of mobility. But we can legislate incentives to attract doctors to especially rural areas. Just one example, you can have a program where if someone stays in the community for X number of years, then the rest of their medical student loans might be paid off. And the beauty of that is that someone who's in gets embedded into a community for 10 years is very unlikely to move away after that. And people want to move to me. They just need to be invited and incentivized.
Well, I think we've dealt with that on the select board quite a bit as far as EMS, and we also just had the process of I think it's $8 to $10 million project coming to Waldoboro for doctor's offices. It's going to be just up the road from here. It's taken a long process, and this is part of the problem. Is we've been going on 4 to 5 years, and it's finally developing. Everyone wants something overnight, and it's not happening. It's not going to happen. But I think with EMS, we've incentivized a lot of our EMTs to take and get courses. We support them. We try to help them out any way we can at the town level. And that's how we keep our EMS people. And as far as the traveling nurses that you talked about, I was listening to a thing on a podcast one day. A woman traveled from, I don't think it was here, but I can't remember exactly where it was. But she was there for 21 weeks and was paid $60,000 plus living expenses. That's an incentive to not be in a hospital and stay there. I would think they would want to move. I have a cousin that's that way. She retired, and she's my age. She retired from being a traveling nurse. So we really need to look at what they get paid. And like Katrina said about the COVID issue, we lost a lot of people. It's going to take forever to build that back, to build that base back. And it's very unfortunate that we have to do that.
So as I said, that was the end of our prepared questions. So now we're going to closing statements, and I did change the timer to 3 minutes. So again, I'll flash the 30 seconds, but and right at the end. So with that, Representative Smith, will you take over our closing statement?
Sure. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's important that we have an opportunity to answer questions in public and open places and have a dialogue. I would say, and one thing I didn't touch on is that all of these things that we worry about, our energy bills, our child care, housing, can all be helped by good jobs. If you have an employer that pays you a decent wage, you can afford your health care, you can afford your groceries. Sure, there's problems with inflation. We hope to see that change through national policies here soon. But we need Maine to be a place that an employer wants to come to. You have the Family Medical Leave Act, which has just been passed by the legislature. Again, not me or Abden, but and it's going to be a huge cost to small employers that they cannot afford. It is very difficult to keep a business. What, the Muddy Waters going out of business right now? You know, everything's going out of business. And we can't continue to be a place 43rd in the nation for education. Maine's not a place that people want to go to. They may want to come retire and ignore the rest of the world, but if you're coming here to live and raise a family, it's not a place you want to be. It's a place you need to flee because you need to be able to support a future for them. So we really need to change things. And I never remember quotes, but you know what the definition of insanity is. Doing the same thing over and over. And we have only had 2 years of a Republican majority in the state house. And that needs to change because Maine has to change. We are in desperate measures. I feel it. Everybody feels it. Maybe some people can afford organic meat, but my mom won't even buy meat. She's 85 and my stepdad's 89. You know, and I'm a poor kid from Appleton. I hate Maine prices, even if I can afford it. You know, it's in our DNA of Mainers to be frugal. And we still can't, we can't all get by. And it's very concerning. We can't keep doing the same things. People of Maine have to be first. We need to put in policies that are frugal and look to a future. And I hope to be reelected to do that, to be a strong voice. I always answer my phone, whether it's a Democrat, Republican, and we talk about policies. I'm proud to always respond to people. I am happy to talk to them and mull over ideas. I may sound radical to some, but that doesn't mean we can't have a conversation and talk. And that's what I'm happy to do, and I hope to be able to do it for 2 more years. Thank you.
So first, thanks for coming out, and thank you to Lincoln County News for hosting this and organizing it. I guess what I would like to leave you with is knowing that I work well with others, all others. On the select board, we have people from all political stripes, and we work really, really well together. We often don't agree on things, but we talk openly, honestly, and respectfully. And we all have the same goal, and that's to do what's best for our residents. And in the State House, I would do the same. And I ask for your vote.
All right, yes, and I'll say it again. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Lincoln County News for holding this. I think this is my 3rd or 4th one I've done over the years. I'd love to be back up there. If I am not able to be back up there, I'm still going to be there. It doesn't really matter. I've been going there since 2008 and fighting for what I believe in, especially in commercial fishing. That's been the biggest thing for me. A lot of these other issues that we have up in Augusta, you're not going to know everything. Like Katrina is fluent in a lot of stuff. I asked a lot of people what's going on, and when you talk about working together, that hasn't happened. That's not even close to what's going on in Augusta. I've tried and tried, and you get snubbed, and it is very frustrating. And people don't realize what it actually is to be up there and deal with it. But I still love going there. I love being up there to fight the fight. I don't consider myself someone that wants to put laws into place. I'm going to try to stop laws that hurt the state of Maine. And that's the biggest thing. I feel as though I'm a backstop. And that's what I believe in. And I appreciate any and all votes.
Thank Lincoln County. And I'd like to thank all the candidates for showing up tonight. It's been really interesting to hear everybody's ideas. I'd also like to thank my community for supporting me. And I look forward to having more door knocking and deeper conversations in the future. Thank you.
Yes, we can get a round of applause for the. And I would just like to say, this is the 4th one, like I said, and the audience participation has been pretty amazing at all of them. So thank you all for coming. I apologize we didn't have enough chairs, but the turnout is going to make us think where we need to do venues next time. So, I just have a couple things to wrap up with. Again, thank you to all the candidates. It is difficult to try to find times in everyone's schedule where they all line up. So thank you all for coming tonight. And for those who watched on the live stream, and the town of Waldoboro for hosting us, this will be put up on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow or Wednesday, where we have all of the candidates forums. So if you weren't able to make one of the other ones, you can watch that. And the last of our 5 forums will be held this Thursday evening at the Great Salt Bay Cafeteria in Sarasota. And that will be October 10th. And it will feature the Senate candidates from District 13 and House District 46. And our editor, Ms. Ewart, will do the inauguration. And again, thank you very much, and have a pleasant evening.
When's your next movie coming out?
No, I don't know. Anything is this week.
She's already retired.